All right. This video is about my experimentation with UDP and eventually Socket IO. And here is an example of it running in Unreal. And right now we're just going to type something. We're going to send it. And we can go to a Python. This is the server that this is a Python Socket IO server, and then the Unreal has a Socket IO client, and here as well is a simple Python Socket IO client. So as we can see, all three of them are connected. So let's see how this works. Shift F1. And stop. And of course, people say when I reference earlier videos, they want to know what videos I'm talking about. Well, you need to go watch all my videos. That would be helpful. But the idea here, excuse me, got a little bit of a chest thing going on. The idea here is to replace the pre-existing Unreal Python plugin, which is a little bit harder to maintain, with a little bit lighter, simpler transport for the chatbot projects that I work on. So let's see here. Test map, content browser. I can't see it. There we go. Again, this code is downloadable. We can, if you're a pretty good C++ integrator, the code for the Socket IO client is here. And you can read through all of this. You do have to pay attention to which version of Socket IO you're running. So here is the code for the plugin, and also you could just buy it pre-compiled for your particular version of Unreal for $10. And basically time is money, and that's what I did. And it also supports a Socket IO. Now, normally what people will do is they'll have a Socket IO server that is Node-based, Node.js. Well, in our example, we don't want to do that because we want to use Python. So this is just a socket server that I got off the internets, and I believe it might be part of the whole package, and I've modified it a little bit. And there's very little code here. So this is the server, and I may or may not do anything with this server. And as you can see, it has a port here. And when you hit localhost 3000, you get this very simple little web page that allows you to type things in. And you can use that if you want, but it just shows you that, okay, this is running in a browser and it's connecting to Unreal engine via the, this is also a client as well, but it's connecting to the server. And these are the, this is how you can, find this information. So let's see. But like I said, we are going to use Python, and we're not going to use Node.js. So here's the, when you hit this little web server the first time, here's the index. And I did have to modify this a little bit because the versions didn't line up. So I had to change this socket.io JS here to get it to work with the server. So there's a little bit of a integration issue right there. So the idea is that in my previous videos I had a knitter, let's see, back out, had a knitter UI that was talking to Unreal Engine using the 0MQ, and that code was a little bit more complicated than what we really needed. Let's do this one. So here's the client, and that's it. As you can see, we are connecting up. I say, as you can see, we're connecting up to the server, and just by saying this is an event and it's called chat message, it already routes us. It already listens and calls this function based off of what the server was doing. Same thing here. There's the this is the channel that we're listening to, chat message, and we're doing something, and then we re-emit to that same chat message. Now, it's not important that we're typing in text and sending things back and forth. What's more powerful here is that you can have several different channels talking to Unreal Engine, and you can have different threads that are sending different pieces of information, like gestures, pre-playing animations, the whole 9 yards. So that was pretty interesting to me, and it's very little code. Now what will have to happen is, let's see what's going on here, if I can remember this. Okay, there's no, I gotta find the, okay, chat window actor. Okay, so here's an actor. And you can see, set up the widget, socket.io client, set it up here, receive messages, generic events, and this is where you can bind to these events, and that's pretty powerful. Let's see, here's where you hit enter, and it gets the chat widget, and it sets the focus. You've got that, and then I think I got this, so socket.io client, chant event name. Here's the, hello socket.io. So if you hit M, this is how you send a message to the system on generic event. And this is all in, once you get this stuff installed, if you go this route, it has the, this example that I'm running. And if everything works right, again, if you buy the plugin or if you compile the plugin, then this stuff should work. So the idea now is that integrating this code, and that's all this really is. It's just a simple client, as taking this client code out. We'll see how long this takes. And let's see. I'm going to try to pull open the other project. This was the existing UI project with, we'll just do it like this. See, knitter. Yeah, look at all this code. This is, in threads, the mouth, a lot of this code. This code right here is getting ready to get converted over to socket.io. And 0MQ, threading, thread, main loop, and this is what I used for the earlier examples. And then there was a chat controller and things like that. So this project was hooked up to the Unreal, the embedded Python, and I'm slowly but surely taking it out. But the reason why this project is important is that it's got an animation blueprint that was connected, and you can see this is 4.26, so you have to have the 4.26 socket IO. But again, if you buy it, you can install it to whatever engine you have running. I've got several different versions. So back to what I was getting at, converting the clients over to using these knitter clients to using socket.io. This takes a little while. So let's see what was, okay, this is the client right here. I can't do anything because Unreal's cranking up. Old PyChar. This is some original work that I've done that is on the, here's the NMBP that goes on one of these characters. And this has the original code in it that will take arrays of floats. For instance, a mouth expression. Takes all those values out and it modifies these morph targets right here. So this was earlier work that I was doing to where I'm controlling these curves myself. And then there's the expression array, and the idea is that sending these arrays via the clients. So you can imagine if you're on the web client and you had a button and you clicked it and it had an array of arrays of mouth expressions, and then it would send them, and then the original socket.io project that is going to get graphed into here, it would grab those values and convert them from a string into a JSON payload, and then peel out the values and set them here. Whereas the original code was Unreal Python plugin code would set them using a pi character. So this is kind of going to be the next step. And of course, people will say, well, why don't you use UDP? You can, and you can use the same person that writes a UDP wrapper, get Namo. He's got another, UDP example plugin, and I was experimenting with that, but it would not run until you installed more code. And he literally said, hey, install this Socket.io client because it's got this core utility in it that has, converting a byte array into JSON and back and forth. So if you have Socket.io client plugin installed, then you can easily use a UDP client server architecture. But my thought process is why bother with that? I mean, go the extra length. Socket.io is much more powerful. I mean, just little tiny bit of Python code and you can connect. And everybody gets the messages. If they're listening, if they're not listening, they won't get the message. So you can have several different Python apps running, asynchronously, communicating back and forth on what needs to happen with a, MetaHuman chatbot. There's things that, the Unreal client doesn't need to know about and or process. One example would be obviously a camera feed that's doing, a person and a face detection and a pose detection and a facial recognition algorithm all in one app. And that's going to be a chunk of code, and it's going to have to run relatively fast. And, do you want that in your server code? Probably not. Do you want it in your, you probably want it in client code. And it's going to have to be multi-threaded and things like that. So that was the original thought process on getting this MetaHuman thing working, is having multiple apps running and communicating on a kind of a message bus, if you will, so they can process things, and you don't have one monolithic Python multi-threaded app, which you could, but you could easily plug in functionality from Python and send pre-processed messages to Unreal Socket.io client very easily, and you can spread the code apart. So let's see. So that's the using UDP, and you can do that, but you're going to write a lot of extra code to convert things from bytes to images to bytes, JSON to JSON strings, there's a bunch of things that are potentially going to happen when all of this stuff is running, and it just makes more sense to me to go the extra mile. You can see the live link face here, which we aren't doing, but there is some code I was looking at. But it's UDP based, and we're not doing anything with live performances. So again, the next step is to take this animation, be this guy right here, and get it, or get this whole project converted over. And I think it's probably pretty close to being able to do that. Let's see, this is the BP control rig. I was playing with that. There's a level sequence. Yeah, let's see if this power, yeah, see, this won't load anymore because the plugin doesn't exist, and you know, that's okay. I can build another character that has the you know, socket IO stuff in it, or maybe there's a maybe it's at the level blueprint to where there's a socket IO listener, and then it can dispatch to whoever it needs to. But that's kind of I'm getting away from Unreal Python plugin, which is powerful, but anytime you're using C++ plugins, and anytime they have a new version of Unreal Engine, you have to go in and recompile. And Unreal Python plugin was so extensive, hooking into the Unreal object model, that things would constantly break. And I've known about socket IO for some time. I didn't get it. It just wasn't in my brain for some reason. And that's kind of the way things work with me. And I found, as I started doing the UDP, I discovered that, man, there's all these other classes that don't exist, but they exist again in socket IO. So just might as well use that. So again, the bigger picture here is to have the Unreal Engine and have a client that you can send arrays of things, or you can send JSON back and forth, and eventually connect up to the these nodes right here, and we're controlling these curves ourselves. And this might be a lot of, you know, a lot of effort, but I have not found a way to use the facial control rig right now inside of Unreal. So this has a face rig that people have seen, and I have not been able to figure out at runtime how to get a handle to that facial rig and control those, you know, knobs excuse me, that it gives you. So later on I might figure that out, but I don't think this isn't really that dramatic of an animation BP. And I've seen bigger, you know, larger ones. So this is the route I'm going to try to go. And if you've been listening this far, I appreciate it. I don't create a lot of videos, you know, simply because I've got a full-time software development job. Anyway, thanks for watching, and, you know, comment and let me know what you think. But I'm hoping to get this whole thing converted over, and then people will be able to, you know, download the code and, you know, download this NMBP and hook things up and use Python to puppet, you know, controlling like a puppet, Unreal items instead of Unreal Engine. So that's all I got. Appreciate it and have a good one.